The strange thing about loneliness is that it doesn't always look like loneliness. You can have conversations all day, you can answer messages, you can even laugh with people, and still go home feeling like no one really saw you, no one really understood you. And after a while, you stop expecting anyone to. Loneliness often grows in ordinary routines. You wake up, you go through the day, you interact with people when necessary, everything functions, but the interactions stay on the surface. Short conversations, practical exchanges, nothing that really touches who you are. At first, it doesn't feel like a problem. Life is busy. People have their own priorities. You assume this is just how adulthood works, so you adapt. You keep things light. You keep things simple. You stop sharing parts of your life that feel complicated. Not because you're hiding something, because explaining it feels exhausting. And the more often you keep things inside, the less natural it feels to open up later. Conversations become efficient instead of meaningful. You talk about work, about plans, about what happened during the week, but rarely about what you actually feel. And slowly, a strange distance appears, not between you and strangers, between you and the people who are supposed to be closest. You're present in the same spaces, but not fully known. And when someone isn't known, they eventually start feeling invisible, not ignored, just unseen. That quiet feeling is where loneliness begins to take root. Modern life quietly amplifies this problem. It gives you endless ways to stay occupied without actually connecting to anyone. You can spend hours scrolling, watching, listening. You see people talking, you see friendships, you see relationships, but you're not inside those moments. You're just observing them. And observation creates a strange illusion. It feels like social activity, but it doesn't satisfy the same need. The brain doesn't register a video the same way it registers a real conversation. It doesn't replace eye contact. It doesn't replace presence. It doesn't replace being understood. So the need for connection remains unfulfilled. But because the day feels full, you don't immediately notice what's missing. You worked, you consumed content, you interacted online. Technically, you weren't alone, but emotionally, nothing meaningful happened. Days like this repeat easily. One evening turns into a week turns into months, and loneliness becomes something quiet that sits in the background of life, not loud enough to force change, just strong enough to slowly affect how you see yourself. You begin assuming you're not that interesting, not that important to others, not someone people are eager to be around. These thoughts rarely arrive suddenly. They grow through interpretation, a message that wasn't answered, an invitation that never came, a conversation that stayed shallow. Each moment seems small, but the brain collects them, and over time, it builds a quiet narrative. Maybe I'm just someone who lives on the outside of things. There's a man who talks to people every day. He works with colleagues. He answers messages. He joins conversations when necessary. From the outside, his life looks socially active. But something about those interactions feels thin. Most conversations stay practical. Deadlines, plans, updates. The kind of exchanges that move the day forward, but never really touch the person behind them. In the evenings, he goes home. He eats. He watches something. He scrolls through a few apps. Occasionally, he sends a message to someone. Sometimes it turns into a short conversation. Most of the time it doesn't. Nothing about this routine feels dramatic. Nothing is obviously broken. But weeks pass, then months, and one evening he notices something strange. He can't remember the last time he had a conversation that felt real, not efficient, not polite, real. A conversation where someone asked how he actually felt, where he could speak without filtering everything. That realization doesn't cause a crisis. It's quieter than that. Just a moment of clarity. The kind that makes you realize how long you've been living slightly disconnected from the people around you. Loneliness doesn't just affect your mood, it changes how you approach people. The longer someone feels disconnected, the more cautious they become. They share less. They expect less. They assume less interest from others, not because people rejected them, because their mind learned to protect itself. If you don't expect connection, you can't be disappointed when it doesn't happen. But protection has a cost. When you stop expecting meaningful relationships, you also stop creating the conditions for them. You speak less openly. You initiate less often. You withdraw slightly earlier in conversations. And the people around you rarely notice the shift. They simply assume you prefer distance. So the cycle continues. You feel unseen, while quietly making yourself harder to see. That is the quiet danger of loneliness. Not the feeling itself, the adaptation to it. Because the moment loneliness starts feeling normal, life begins to shrink around it. You take fewer social risks. You build fewer new relationships. You settle for routines that keep you comfortable but isolated. And years can pass inside that smaller world. The difficult truth is that loneliness rarely disappears on its own. It changes when someone decides to move toward connection again, to risk awkward conversations, to reach out first, to say something real instead of something safe. Those moments feel uncomfortable, but they are also the moments where the direction of your life quietly changes. Because connection doesn't begin with certainty. It begins with someone deciding not to stay invisible anymore.